Just as a background, the Land Information Office is charged with developing and maintaining GIS applications within Milwaukee County. However, we don't always have a clear understanding of the variety of ways that people actually use our services. These webinars are meant to be as a two-way street for us. We want to know how you use the site, and in turn, we'll help demonstrate the best ways to leverage the site for your workflows. So from that point of view, I'd like to poll the attendees to get a clearer picture of your industry. There should be a poll that's coming up on your screen asking for your general industry area. Unfortunately, I was only limited to 5 options, so I put in real estate, engineering, planning, insurance, and homeowners. And I realized that you might not fall into one of those categories, but if you're pretty close, I guess I would pick that one. Okay, we've got a decent number of responses so far. And I got one note that higher education, library, industry. Okay, thank you. Okay, I'm going to give this just another couple seconds here, then I'll close the poll. Okay. So the results, it appears that 63% of you are in the real estate sector. I'd imagine that also includes assessment. And then there's engineering, planning, and homeowners. So that's great. We've got a pretty wide variety of attendees here who try to use our site for a variety of purposes. So the goal of today's webinar is to make sure that everyone is familiar with the general capabilities of the new interactive mapping website. Now, we use the term new, however, the site's been operational for nearly a year. Both the old, or as we call it, the legacy site, and the new site have been available during this transition period. That's as capabilities of the new site has been expanded. Now that the sites have reached pretty much parity, and because of aging technology, we'll be retiring the legacy site as of June 30th. I'd also like to take this opportunity to briefly introduce everyone to the Land Information Office's website. Let me make sure that I am sharing the screen correctly. Okay, so the Land Information Office's website is available at county.milwaukee.gov/MCLIO. Now, you'll notice that the first thing that pops out on the screen, perhaps after the title banner, is the link to the interactive mapping viewer. This is a link to our most current viewer, and this space will always be reserved for kind of our flagship product. You'll notice underneath it there are links that will refer to help about the interactive map, and we'll get to that in a minute. There's also announcements, which you can always go in and see, and we do have a newsletter that kind of puts all these announcements together and sends them out weekly, which you can subscribe to on the right. Everything else underneath the LIO's website is available in these drop-down menus on the top. So there's online applications, which we'll get back to shortly. Data, you can look at the data we have available online, request data, and see more information about the data that we have available. Maps, announcements, links to local municipalities and agencies, and then About, which contains information about the staff, projects that are going on, and Milwaukee County Metro GIS User Group, which I'll talk about a little bit at the end of the webinar. So what we want to be focused on today is the interactive mapping service. So underneath the online applications menu, if you go to interactive mapping service, and you don't need to follow along now if you don't like to, since I know we're kind of pressed for time. This site contains both the links to our current viewer and our legacy mapping sites. So you may be asking, how do I know if I'm using the new site right now? Well, the old site now has a large message indicating that it'll no longer be available. So if you are, I have to refresh this site. Once you load it, you'll notice that there's a large message in the banner that it will no longer be available. So this is the old viewer. You can also see that the link to the viewer starts with maps.Milwaukee County. That would be the old viewer. The new viewer does not have a warning message, and it starts with lio.milwaukeecounty.org. So, other than visual differences, that's the real clear indication of where you are. So with that in mind, I would like to poll everyone to see what the familiarity is with the new website. So there's a poll on the screen asking if you only use the new website exclusively, or if you kind of use a mix, or if you've never actually used the new interactive mapping website. And all of those answers are fine. There's no correct answer. We realize that a lot of people have made shortcuts to the old interactive mapping viewer, and you just kind of go there on a regular basis. So we're just trying to see what kind of usage we have of the new site to make the transition as smooth as possible. So I'm going to give this poll another couple of seconds here. And all right, I'm going to close it here. So the results are that about a third of you exclusively use the new interactive mapping website, which is great. Otherwise, there's a large percentage that use both, and some that I think looks like you've had some interaction with the new site but still rely on the old site. And some of you have not used the new site at all, which is fine. So very briefly, what I'd like to do is remind everybody about the general layout of and functionality of the legacy site. So especially for those of you who have not used the new site, this will be very familiar to you. And for those of you who have used the new site, this will be kind of a reminder of how the site used to operate. Make sure I share the right screen here. Okay. This is the legacy interactive mapping viewer. We know that because it has the large title that says it won't be available anymore. Its layout is, there's not much complexity in terms of the layout and tools available to you on this website. In general, all tools are available to you in the toolbox. And the toolbox, you have to switch between tools all the time to do really anything with the map. In fact, if you click on the map, you can't pan around the map. In fact, when you click on the map, it'll use the default tool that you have selected, which in this case happens to be the zoom in tool. So if you want to pan, you have to use the pan tool. And the scroll wheel function of zooming in and out is, it's a little weak. It doesn't operate very smoothly. And if you want to get to different tools, you can only see the tools that are available in the current toolbar. So it's a little clunky to switch around. The layer list, that's a pretty standard layout for layers. They're grouped into categories. You can see the legend by clicking on legend. Otherwise, there's not a lot to this site. If you right-click on the map, you're not going to get anything except maybe some information like HTML information that has nothing to do with using the website. And that's really it. So keep that in mind as we go into the new site. The new site is powered by Microsoft Silverlight, which is a plugin that enhances display and interactive abilities. So when you're using the site, you have to make sure that you have the plugin activated. It's always recommended that you have pop-up blockers turned off or have our site on the safe list. And as soon as it loads, you'll notice that the display is much more attractive than the old website, but also it's much more intuitive when you're using it on a desktop computer. For example, you can actually use your mouse immediately to pan around the map just by clicking and dragging. If you have a mouse wheel, which most people do, you can very smoothly zoom in and out, which I think is a great function that wasn't always available on the old site. So what I'm going to do is just kind of take everybody on a tour of the new website and its layout. You'll notice it does share some similarities to the new site. One is that tools are grouped into toolboxes, but rather than having to go through a drop-down system and get to a category of tools, there are these, I guess you'd call them tags, or I don't know, I can't think of the word for it, but you can get to each category of tools and kind of keep them all in the exact same spot here. And some of the tools remain static. So the getting around toolbar is basically for navigation, and pan, zoom in, zoom out, those tools are always available on every toolbox, but you don't really need them if you're using your mouse, because you can zoom in and out using the scroll wheel and just by dragging. You can also zoom in and out using the small zoom bar on the left. The search toolbar, and I'm going to get back into these toolbars in a minute, but I just want to go over the general function of each one. Searches is all about searching. You can search for subdivisions, CSMs, search by address name, owner name, tax key, etc. Or you can do more advanced queries, which we won't get into today. There's the selection toolbar, which helps us deal with selecting items on the map. Maps and data sources, you can bring in data into the map or sometimes export data out of the map. There's tasks, which allow us to manipulate data or create reports, export maps, print maps, etc. Finally, analysis, which contains things like measurement information. Okay, moving around the site some more, you'll notice that there are kind of a bunch of little buttons around, and that's new compared to the new site. One is a button over on the right, which looks like a toolbar, or it looks like tools. And what that does is hide the toolbar. So if you ever find yourself in the map and you don't see tools or anything that you could actually interact with the map, click on the toolbar and it'll pop back down. Also over on the right is a list of base maps and layer themes. Now the base map that you see on the map right now is just kind of a representation of features on the ground. It's not an aerial photo, obviously, but you could turn on the aerial photo base map. So these are always available. Layer themes turn on, kind of groups of information, and these can always be changed by us. So if there are layer themes or perhaps base maps that may interest you, we're always interested in hearing those ideas. Down in the lower right, there's a very small arrow that would opens up an overview map that at least shows you which municipality you're in. The lower left, you can get XY coordinate information about where you currently are on the map. You can change the coordinate system to get latitude and longitude. The default is Wisconsin State Plain South. And finally, there's a scale bar on the bottom. Now on the left, there's another small caret on a button which hides the information pane. Now this is kind of where everything happens in the new site. So by default, the information pane contains the map layer list, which is a table of contents. And you'll see a list down here of layer themes. We saw this duplicated over on the right, but you can also change layer themes here. But you can also just click on groups of data, or you can expand them and see what data is underneath each group. You can also turn the legend on and off. So if you don't need to see which layers are not visible, but you want to see how or what they look like on the map, the Show Legend button will do that. And if you're looking for a layer that you'd like to turn on, but you don't want to hunt through all these, there's a filter button, and you can search. Let's see, I'm going to search for hydro. And we see in the topographic group, there's hydro lines, hydro points, hydro anno. So you can use the filter as kind of an easy way to search for a layer. Finally, I want to point out for those of you that formerly use the secured web mapping service, now there's a way to log in without having to go to a separate website. So that's a new feature which really helps us out because we can manage just one site. The sign-in is in the upper right corner. If you click sign in, it'll take you to the sign-in page. You'll want to sign in with GeoCortex Identity Server, and you'll use the sign-in that you were assigned, and then you'll be able to get into the secure site, which looks exactly like the normal site. It just has some additional features that you're familiar with. Last two things that are available right on the start page, or right from the get-go. In the upper right, to get to help, you can show the help topics. This will take you to the online help system. And then finally, if you've ever used projects, that has changed slightly. Projects are always available on no matter what toolbar you're in the upper left. You can open a project and save a project. And I will get back into that shortly. So are there any questions just on the basic layout of the site? I know we kind of went through that pretty fast. All right, I don't see any, so I'm going to move on. I'm going to go through each toolbar, and again, it's going to be pretty rapid fire, but I want everybody to be able to see kind of everything that you can do, at least, first blush on all these toolbars. So I think the navigation tools are pretty easy to understand. You can go back to your initial extent or full extent of the map, which is simply the entire county. Previous extent takes you back to where you just were. So if you accidentally zoom way in and you don't want to be there, just hit previous extent. Identify will drill down and identify all data that's displayed on the map. So if I hit identify right here, it's going to show what's on the map in terms of which layers are turned on. So by default, there's a number of layers turned on, and you can see right now there is information about the tax parcel and a plat of survey. Now if you click somewhere else where there isn't data, you might not get anything, like the middle of this river. So if you wanted information about the river, you'd have to turn on a layer that actually had something like floodplain. And now the information tool gets you information about the floodplain. Show layers simply opens up this layer list. Layer drawing order, you can change the order in which these are drawn. You can type in a specific scale, like let's say 1 to 100. Feet would be 1 to 1200. You can type it in to get a specific scale. You can jump to bookmarks like the City of Oak Creek. We have municipality saved in here. You can add your own if that's important to you. We have another link to the help, and we have a link to, and there's a tool that will show you help about something on the map. Like what is this button? The I want to menu. Oh, and that's something I completely skipped over. Sorry, that's the most important button of them all. Let me go back to that. The I want to button kind of is a shortcut to do a lot of the things that people want to do when they come to the website. So it's basically the answer to the question, I want to do what? I want to find parcels by tax key. I want to add a map layer. I want to view results. So this is a huge change from the old website in that you don't have to hunt around the toolbar to find something that you think you want to do. You already have it in mind what you want to do. You find it in the I want to toolbar. So I will go through some of these later. That is the getting around or navigation toolbar. Next is searches, and this duplicates, I should say, the I want to menu duplicates tools that are in the toolbar. There's nothing unique in here that you can't do somewhere else. So as I go through these tools, you'll see that some of them are in here. So let's say that you want to search by address. Just click on address search, start typing, and you get a list of addresses. Now you can autocomplete to, say I want 2711 West Wells Street. If you start typing that in and click search, it'll zoom to that parcel. Or let's say you want to search for multiples. I'll just search for 2711, but leave it. And I'm not going to click on an option. It'll give me every address that has 2711 in it, except it didn't do that. So let me try that again. All right, that is not working. So let me try an owner search for Jones. That should get multiple features. Okay, here we go. So you can see that there are, as you hover over all of these, you'll see all of the Jones. Now, I'm going to introduce right now a very important feature that's very different from the old website, and that is the difference between results and a selection. So you'll notice right now that there are 874 results for the search of Jones. However, these are not selected features, meaning you could have different types of features and add them to a selection, and you can also search for new features at the same time. So if I want to add Jack Jones and Jeffrey Jones to the selection, I can click on this star on the left. Or if I want to add all of the results from my search to the selection, you can hit select all. Now that's a huge selection, but once you hit select all, you'll see them all highlighted on the map. I'm going to skip to the next toolbar where you can actually interact with the selection. So if you go to view selected, you'll see you have 874 tax parcels. All right, I'm going to clear those out. I decided I don't want all Joneses in my selection. However, I want to see that search result again. Well, you can still go to view results because that result is still there. So, I guess keep that in mind, that just because you search for something, it doesn't mean that you've added it to a selected set. So you could search for an owner of Jones, select one parcel. You could clear the results. You can search for another owner. See those results. Add that to a selection. Clear the results, but if you go to your selected, you'll see you have two tax parcels selected. Jack Jones and Arlene Johnson. So you can do multiple searches, multiple search results, but still not, endanger the selections that you've created. So I spent so much time on that because that's a huge change for how the basic operations happen on the old website. I see we only have 5 minutes left, so I'm going to very quickly go through the rest of these toolbars. The maps and data sources allows you to add map layers. These are pretty advanced tools, but you can add, if you have shape files or other web map layers, you can add them in here and interact with them on the web map. You can also connect to some of our external mapping tools, one of which is pictometry. This would open in a new window and allow you to navigate around the pictometry extension. This has changed slightly from the old site, which used to pop up a window within the web mapping service. Now it's a separate window, but it's still tied, it's still linked to the map. So if you pan around on here, go over here, you'll notice that the pictometry window moves and vice versa. So if you pan within the pictometry window, the map pans behind it. You can also link out to Bing Maps and Google Maps. Tasks allows you to create a report, such as a parcel report. If you had a selection on a parcel, like say I kept those two parcels selected, then I could create a parcel report. You can export a map image. into whichever format you'd prefer, even a georeferenced TIFF. And you can draw and do markups. And markups are the topic of a help video that we have on YouTube. So if you go to the interactive mapping service part of our website, you can actually launch tutorial exercises and a tutorial video about accessing survey maps and making site plan markups. The markup tools are really great tools, so it would take a little extra time to go through those. Finally, with analysis, you can use your area and distance tools. And the drawing and using measuring tools in the new website is a lot more intuitive and provides you with better information about the length of each segment and the area of the polygon as a whole. So I encourage you to actually just play around with it and kind of just get used to drawing it. It's really great compared to the last version. So I guess that is, in a nutshell, the entire web mapping website, which is way too much information way too quickly. But I hope that it gives those of you who are used to the old site a glimpse into the potential of the new site, and to kind of show that you should be able to do everything on the new site that you did in the old site. So at this point, I'd like to take our last poll and just to see if there's any features that were on the old website that you think are missing on the new one. And I'm going to, if anybody says yes, I'm hoping that they can tell me what you think we missed, because I want to make sure that we cover it. All right, it looks like most everybody has voted. So I'm going to close this. And fortunately, nobody answered yes, so that's good. We spent some time to try to make sure that you can do everything on the new site that you could do on the old site, and hopefully, in most cases, do it better. So I'd like to thank you all for attending. The webinar will be available to download on our website, and I'd also like to take this opportunity